Yo, what's good, Knicks Nation? Alex Terrace here, aka the Tradicaster, back again with another Game of the Week preview. We are previewing the New York Knicks facing the Toronto Raptors this Friday. They're going to play the Detroit Pistons tonight, so that should be an easy win, but you never know. But they are playing the Toronto Raptors. They're going up to T-Dot, all right? At 7:30 p.m., you can catch the game tomorrow. And who better to help preview this game than a returning guest, Will Liu, covers the Toronto Raptors for Sportsnet up there in Toronto, does a great job. Make sure to hit the thumbs up button for your boys. Make sure to share these links to all your friends, family members, and whoever's out there that needs to tune in and get ready for tomorrow's game. And remember, this show is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Make sure to use that promo code KFTV to get a $100 match. Will, what's good, man? How are you feeling today?
Feeling good, man. You know, Raps just beat KD and Devin Booker. I know it's something that you guys weren't able to do. So,
Oh,
you
my
know,
God.
Here
we go.
We were able to guard Devin Booker decently enough. I think he only had 8 points. I don't know how many he had against you guys, but yeah, feeling good, man. How about you guys? You guys are better in the record, though, so I don't even know why I'm talking trash.
Oh my God, you're coming in here hot and spicy, man. You're trying to get ready for tomorrow's game. I like it. That's why I like having you on as a guest, Will. But you know what? Even though we weren't able to defeat the Suns, who I was watching that game yesterday. I was watching that game. KD did his thing. Book was quiet. Siakam, Scotty Barnes is having a good season. You know, he's had a nice turnaround. But for the Knicks, man, we're all right. You know, we're 10-7. Yeah. We're in the in-season tournament, so we're proud of that. We're ready to go out to Vegas. We're trying to beat the Bucks and be in this whole mix. So looking forward to that. So I'm good on this side, man. But let's cut to the chase and let's talk about this game. But before actually we get into like the whole storylines in the game, there is some beef right now between the New York Knicks and the Toronto Raptors with a lawsuit. So I got to ask you, man, what are your thoughts about that lawsuit going on right now?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel like it feels like two rich people kind of trying to piss on each other, you know? Like it's because here's the thing. The Knicks don't want Adam Silver to deal with this, which means you guys aren't getting no draft picks. You guys aren't getting no compensation in that kind of NBA fashion. You know what I mean? Like that would be probably the most ideal outcome for a Knicks fan is to like, hey, you know what? We traded essentially a team employee for some picks. Everybody would take that kind of deal, especially when we're talking about low-level video assistants. No offense to Azultam. But like, no, it seems like they want to take it in a further kind of fashion, in a bigger, you know, way. And so whatever. If that means the Raptors get docked some money at the end of this, I still think it's unlikely. But you know what? Go ahead. You know, rich people fight each other in courts. It's like watching Succession, but it's a little closer to home. Like I'm cool with this, you know. So, but it is kind of funny, and I guess my question to you is, did you even know this employee in question? Like, as a diehard Knicks fan who covers the team, did you even know who Azultam even was before this?
I knew I've seen him. I knew of him, but like I didn't know like the in depth of like what he did and everything along those lines. Like, to be honest, once we got Leon Rose as the president of basketball operations, this has probably been the most in-depth coverage of like who each front office member is, who the assistant coaches are, you know, outside of Tom Thibodeau. So we knew about him, but like his detailed role for the team, I couldn't tell you what he did until like, you know, this report came out and understanding what the allegations are. But, you know, for me, man, like looking at this lawsuit, it's like, it's all accusations right now. We still have to figure out, you know, the Raptors still have time to respond to the Knicks file, you know, for the court case. But honestly, man, like I don't know the in-depth information of just all the information that has been given. You know, I spoke to me and CP, founder, CEO of KnicksFanTV. We spoke to Amin El Hassan, and we asked him what he thought about the entire Knicks and Raptors conflict right now with this case. And a lot of the information that he said, like Second Spectrum, all these things, it's like so openly available that it's this wouldn't be a slam dunk case because you can just go to a website and get all this information. It doesn't seem like it's all proprietary stuff. I guess the question is there any proprietary stuff that we don't know about that was transferred? But for me, man, that's all what this court case and everything will go down when they start doing depositions and whatnot. So to me, I'm with you. It's rich guys just fighting. I have no idea what to look at it, but like, you know, for Dolan, who has beef with Masai Ujiri, it's like, oh, he got us with the Melo trade for ponying up too much. Oh, he got us with the Andrea Bargnani trade. So now it's like, oh, this is our chance. this is our chance to do something. So that's kind of how I look at this too.
Yo, I didn't even take this in until I read Baxter Holmes of ESPN. He's been reporting on this issue. He's been great on it. And he put it in there that the Knicks wanted to hire Masai back in 2020.
Yes.
And I guess I just slipped my mind entirely. But that's kind of awkward, But I get it. So if it is kind of funny watching this thing play out. My biggest worry was just like, look, I don't want the Raptors to have to lose their head coach or lose any draft picks. I think that's immediately when you get sued. It's a serious thing. Like you do worry about it. But I think the more the details have come out, I'm like, all right, it seems like, there's a bunch of money and sort of smearing or whatever. So, I mean, look, listen, yeah, I'm not trying to be rude, but like, I think that most of sort of like what goes into a scouting report or goes into a playbook, generally speaking, is not only accessible in terms of everyone kind of is on the same playing field and that kind of things, but just reading the details of the case, it did not seem like the coach was like, hey, I want you to steal this play from the Knicks or this play from the Knicks. There's also lots of stories of players taking literal playbooks. Back in the day when it was like on paper and stuff, now it's all digital, but back in the day, players would literally take their playbook from place to place so they could show the next coach, like, yo, I want you to run floppy, and I like the ball over here in the left corner, like stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. It's a nice little distraction from the game itself, but I guess you guys don't need that because you guys are solid right now.
Yeah, it's a nice little distraction. I mean, this is more so that was more so like off-season stuff that occurred, right? And Knicks are 10-7. They're third in the Atlantic Division. We're competing, we're still in the midst of just trying to get everyone in rhythm. Brunson's now back, Randall's now back, RJ's now hit a little slump after having some migraine and being out for a week. But other than that, we're still just looking for our role players to get up to speed, like Grimes, Dante, like Quickly's doing his thing. So the Knicks are in a fine place right now, man. They're going to be a tough team. That's who they are. But as of right now, there's nothing really. This is new territory for Knicks fandom, just because outside of Randall, his second season with the team going to the playoffs, this is probably the only time where I could say that there could be continued success back-to-back years, right? And that's been a long time, because the last time we've experienced that was with Melo when we traded for him, where you had 3 appearances in the playoffs. And after that 2012, 2013 season, once we traded for Bargnani, it was a decade that we're talking about of just even some sort of monochrome of a success. So it's refreshing at this point. But let me ask you, man, because this is a whole preview to talk about both teams. How's the Raptors been? What's it like for this season so far? Because last year was up and down when we last spoke, and now it seems like even though you guys don't have the wins to reflect the record that maybe you want to see, it seems like things are starting to bounce back, especially for Scotty Barnes.
Oh yeah, I think last time we spoke, we talked about like, Scotty's been inconsistent. It's been like we want the next level from him. He's hitting that next level on a consistent basis. Like you saw last night, it was what, KD's in the game, Booker's in the game, and the most impressive player in the fourth quarter was Scotty Barnes, man. The guy had 12 points in the fourth quarter, half of the Raptors scoring, played great defense as well, two-way player. And I think the key for Scotty is just like how much energy he brings to the game. There's like a switch that he can flip. And when he hits that switch, like it's like the same thing he did to Wemby. There was like a national TV game where the Raptors beat the Spurs in overtime, and that was like maybe like 6-7 games into the season. Scotty took over that fourth quarter, same kind of deal, 17 points, including a step back 3 to tie the game and force overtime. He's that type of guy now. So, I think that's really allowed the Raptors to get really excited about their future, because it's like clearly no matter what happens with the rest of the roster and whatever, they're all going to be in trade rumors. We had Shams on our show earlier this week. He's like, yeah, basically Scotty's locked down. Everyone else, you don't know, man. Make sure you rent in Toronto. Don't buy it. But like, no matter what, the long term is going to be okay, because Scotty, I think, is making that jump, which, he obviously showed great things. I mean, he's rookie of the year in a really good rookie class, so he's continuing to make that jump. Early in the season, the Raptors could not get Pascal Siakam going at all. He can't. Also, right now, he's in a wicked cold slump from 3. He was 1 of 5 from 3 last game. He's basically been 1 of 5 from 3 every single game. He's really been struggling, even on wide open threes. He's missing. But they couldn't get Pascal going inside of the arc to start the year, which was odd. But they figured that out. Pascal's been solid, back to the sort of all-star level. It's a little bit weird because sometimes he's the number 1 option, sometimes Scotty's the number 1 option, but ultimately it's not a bad problem because you have 2 guys who can play at an all-star level. Past that, about OG, really great defense. You probably see him. Actually, I guess you guys don't really have that kind of dominant wing. Like last night, for example, he's guarding KD, and then KD comes out of the game, and Booker's in the game, and he's like, I'm going to guard Booker now. And he did a great job against both those guys. Like, he's a special defender. Night before that, he was guarding what Donovan Mitchell held him to 4 of 17. So, I mean, I guess as Knicks fans, you guys are no strangers seeing Donovan Mitchell shoot 4 of 17 occasionally, but still, he's a great player, and OG's really great defensively. They got a center finally since the last time we spoke. Jakob has been solid.
Yes.
Yeah, we had no center for a while. Scotty was playing center. It was weird.
6'9" vision is finally over. You're going back to traditional because you got Dennis Schroeder playing the point guard too, man.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Him and Yak and Dennis are really able to run a nice little 2-man game. They got a good pick and roll, so that's like probably 5-6 buckets a game just off of that. The thing is, the Raptors are just inconsistent, man. Their bench really brings very little. Like 90% of the time, the bench sucks. No offense to the guys, but like, they're not really contributing in that way. And then sometimes the starters come out low energy as well. So last couple of games, we've seen performances where the Raptors will fall down like 15, 16 points in the first quarter and have to fight all the way back. So they're up and down right now. I think that's part of the territory with a new coach too. But I think in the bigger picture, they're actually pretty okay with Scotty making this jump. But the rest of it is still TBD.
Yeah, and you mentioned about guys like Siakam, OG, and even Gary Trent Jr. Those are 3 guys right there. Big key components of what the Raptors need, like, for this nucleus right now in order to stay competitive. But as you noted, their future is up in the air. And so what do you think for all 3 of them? And we can start with whoever you want, but all 3 of those guys, this is the last year of their deal. As a Raptors fan and covering the Raptors for so long, what do you think about the situation for the team?
Honestly, so with Masai, right? He's kind of giving it the shot right now. Is like, look, last year Raptors, they had much higher expectations than going 41-41 and losing in the play-in game. They had high expectations and it didn't work out. Vibes around the team were bad. Whatever. They let go of Nick Nurse. I think he was a big part of why the vibes were bad. Doesn't mean he's a bad coach. He's doing a great job in Philly, by the way. But it just wasn't working out in Toronto. Kind of overstayed his time there, and so they kind of run back the same team. I mean, like, they were prepared to bring Fred back at a reasonable number. Like, Fred VanVleet's a good player, made an all-star team, pretty solid guy just in general. But Houston came in with a max offer. You don't give a max offer if you're Toronto to a guy like that. So you got to let him walk. Luckily, they get in Dennis Schroeder, who's actually been pretty equivalent to what Fred gave them last year. So to get the same production, but from a guy who making the mid-level at 13 is a lot better value-wise. However, the core of the team is still the core of the team. It's still the same kind of deal. Can they play better? They bring in a new coach. So Masai's thinking going into this is like, look, we're going to play a new way now, and we're going to see who fits. And that's what's going to decide whether or not that these guys are going to be here long-term, or if we move off of them in the trade deadline, or even potentially let a couple of guys walk in free agency. Obviously, I prefer them to get, pieces back rather than letting them walk, because that's what sucked about Fred walking was like, okay, I'm fine with Fred moving on, but you didn't get nothing back for him. And so, yeah, that leads to your question of, Pascal, Gary, OG as well. I think out of the 3, the most likely to stay is OG Anunoby. OG's defense, his 3-point shooting is something that the Raptors just have, like, they just absolutely need them. And I think that long-term, in terms of who fits next to Scotty the best, OG's skill set, being that 3-and-D player who can really just form that defensive backbone, but also be a positive contributor on offense. I think, to me, it's like, it gets to a point where it's like, okay, are you willing to pay him close to the max? Because to me, he's not a close to the max kind of guy, but he's still young enough. And it's like, I just don't want to let him go. I also think Masai has a great affection for him. It's like a father-son thing. So they're not getting rid of OG. Pascal, Pascal is the most accomplished player of the 3 of them. 2-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA champion as well. He was the Raptors' second option in when the Raptors won the chip in 2019. And he's homegrown. He's really developed. When he came into the league, he wasn't supposed to be no star. So it's been a great story. But the Raptors have not necessarily treated it always as a great story. Like, all offseason, last year at the draft, they had conversations about potentially moving him. In free agency, when free agency began, there was talks, but maybe they'll move him. He ultimately chose not to come to Summer League and join the rest of the team there because there was a real chance that he might get moved. And it's funny because a couple years going back, that's what happened to DeMar DeRozan. His vet in the league, he saw this happen with his vet in the league, where DeMar went with the Raptors to free agency or to Summer League back in 2018. And even asked Masai, like, yo, am I getting traded? Masai's like, no, you're good, man. Don't worry. And then boom, like 2-3 days later, the guy gets a call out of the blue and he's going to the San Antonio Spurs and the Raptors getting Kawhi. Now, obviously, that trade worked out perfect. That's Masai's best trade of all time, next to fleecing you guys for Bargnani, basically.
Oh my God, there we go.
Yeah,
the digs are always coming in. I'm like always expecting the digs.
Nah, you guys willingly trading for Bargnani is so funny to me, man, because we hated him after 7 years in Toronto. Let alone the fact that we drafted him first overall. Just take that in. But yeah, like basically Pascal has been traded or has been on the trade block, at least in the last summer. And if I had to guess, that's probably what's going to be the case, even moving forward. Now, of course, it's going to take the right deal. The Masai's not going to give him up for nothing. And he's got a great track record of moving star players, but unless I see him actually get extended, and the Raptors still have this window if they want to extend him, but they didn't extend him so far. So I'm not necessarily waiting or holding my breath on that. That's more TBD. And then Gary, honestly, Gary is a little interesting because he could really score. And I think he's had some pretty good scoring games against, you guys, but he's kind of like one-dimensional in that way. He doesn't really play make all that much. And then the defense kind of comes and goes. Ultimately, he's not a high-impact defensive player. And so I think he's young, but also at the same time, the Raptors have had him for a couple of years. They know what he's about. He probably tested for agency this summer and then realized there wasn't a big market, so he just opted into his player option. But yeah, he's been coming off the bench, and I don't know. I mean, like, it wouldn't surprise me if he had a big game just because he can really score. But unless he's hot, then he's not as useful to your team. So long term, I'd say OG's going to be here. Pascal's kind of 50-50 maybe, and Gary's probably 50-50 as well.
Well, Gary still has a player option, right?
No, he used the player option.
He used the player option. Okay.
Yeah, so he's just going to be unrestricted. That's it.
Is there anyone that has a player option, or am I mistaken that someone doesn't?
OG has a player option, but it's a really cheap one. It's like 18 or something like that. He's going to make like double that. Yeah,
that's who I'm thinking. And I think the talk was that he may opt out, test free agency just to see what his market's like, right? So I can understand keeping OG. We have the whole debate or the whole rumor that last season the Knicks wanted to trade for OG Anunoby as well. And look, he'd be a great addition to the team just because of, as you mentioned, versatility. He can guard 1 through 4, and depending on what night, he can even guard a 5. Shooting is there. The whole talk was that he could be like the next upcoming Kawhi Leonard when Kawhi was back in Toronto because of like the little slow, like he doesn't move at a lightning fast pace. He moves at his own pace, a little herky jerky when he does get into his own action, into his own set. So I get the thought process there, but obviously not Kawhi. But for me, I thought the thing when it came to OG though is that the asking price for him. And that's where I think it was like 3 first-rounders that they wanted for OG was like the rumor. And to me, like, good player, not worth 3 first-rounders in my opinion, just because he's not that guy that would take you over the top. And I'm thinking if I'm trading multiple first-round picks that are going to like convey, I don't want to trade for just a guy who I think is just a role player, which is what he was when they won the chip and what he still is today. He hasn't been an all-star player, not that type of guy. Like him though, but I thought the price was a little too much. And for me, like when I see that, and I'm wondering like what's Masai's thought process, because if you're asking so much for a guy, why not just keep him and not even like allow him to get into like trade rumors and just like squash all of that? Unless it's like you're packaging him up for a top player, such as like a Kawhi or someone in that caliber range.
I think that's the kind of trade that it will take to let Masai part with OG. Like, to put this in perspective, Raps were part of the Damian Lillard trade discussions in the summer, because obviously it was like, okay, everyone thought he was going to go to the Heat, and it dragged on and it dragged on and dragged on, and ultimately other players started coming in and trying to like jump in to see. And I don't think the Raptors would have ultimately got that deal done with Dame. I really don't think Dame wanted to come to Toronto, but like even in those trades, OG wasn't in the trade discussion. So that's Damian Lillard under contract for 4 years. Like, say what you want, but that would have fixed a lot of the Raptors' problems. Raptors really can struggle to score a lot, and they don't have a lot of strong guard play. Like, the Raptors guard rotation is Dennis Schroeder. All due respect, he comes on my show every week, so appreciate Dennis. I hope you're not listening to this. But it's like Dennis, Gary, and Malachi Flynn. Like, that is not a strong 3-man like guard rotation in the league right now, given how much guard depth is in the league. Like Quickly would be probably instantly our best guard. Again, all due respect to Dennis, man. Damn, I please don't watch this, but still, like, Dame would have really helped in that sense. But yeah, I mean, even in those trade talks, like OG wasn't included. So I'm telling you, man, you're not gonna get OG. Like Masai's dead serious when he says 3 picks for him, which is why I think he's gonna ultimately stay. Because if you value him that much, you better pay him. Pascal, I think is interesting because I think the Raptors really do need scoring and they need a secondary guy to run with them. And I think he's very willing to stay in Toronto, but I don't know. That part's been really confusing. I think overall direction in terms of your question of what's Masai thinking, like that's something that Raptor fans are really, really curious about. They want to know what he's thinking as well, because it's been kind of unclear. Like it's basically been a 500 team for the last 3 years when you look at it on the whole. So at that point, people are always kind of waiting to see if you're going to rebuild or kind of go all in, and they're not really doing either.
Salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning in right now. We're doing the Game of the Week preview. We're previewing the New York Knicks facing the Toronto Raptors. Tomorrow at 7:30 p.m., the Knicks will be in Toronto to face the Raptors. And joining me today to discuss this game is Will Lou. You can catch him over at Sportsnet. Does a great job covering the Toronto Raptors for that radio station, that network. Make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Make sure to use that promo code KFTV for up to a $100 match. All right, Will, I got to ask you about the man that's in charge of all these decisions, because you brought up Masai Ujiri and how he let Fred VanVleet walk away for nothing. And now you're just kind of in this position of, I don't know, we got to wait and see after this season. And this is a guy who's, talked about you're either in it for it all or nothing. And that's kind of been that whole mantra. And right now, that's not the case. It's in the middle. So what has your thoughts been about Masai Ujiri up until this point?
I mean, look, any Raptor fan that tells you anything different than this would be lying or just be straight up ungrateful. Masai is like top 5 best things to ever happen to the Raptors organization, right? Like since Masai took over, and this is all the way back in 2013 now, the Raptors, I think, are like second in the league, maybe behind Golden State for like wins. They had so many 50-win seasons. They literally went year to year and they just kept shattering the franchise record in wins, right? It went from like 48 the first year. And first of all, the Raptors franchise history before Masai, before 2013, was straight garbage. Okay. Like there was Vince Carter was here for a hot second. It was nice for like 2 years. I think we beat you guys in the playoffs. I wasn't even a Raptor fan back then. But like that's it. That was it. That was it. We had like literally one playoff series win for like probably 20 years, So Masai takes over. They get a lot of success. The team is much more successful on the court. That leads to success off the court. Lots of great, valuations, all that kind. I don't know. The rich people get richer kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, and of course that led to the championship. And it was like at that point, Masai was untouchable, man. Like literally untouchable. But I think since then it's been a little confusing, and it's not too dissimilar to other teams who win that one chip, but that's not a dynasty. It's like when the Mavericks won their one title back in 2011. That was awesome. Dirk had that great run. They had some vets. They contributed. But even that summer, they let Tyson Chandler go to you guys, right? And that changed, I think, a lot for you guys back then. I think he won Defensive Player of the Year and really rejuvenated your squad. But I think that led to the Mavericks really taking a dive. And they've been really questionable ever since. And they never really rebuilt in that stretch as well. Toronto situation was different because Kawhi left, but it's still this bigger picture kind of thing of like, okay, you've reached the championship. Now, how do you sort of like rebuild back to that point? It's been a really difficult thing for Masai to answer. And so I look, they tanked 1 year because they were in Tampa due to the pandemic. And the Canadian government essentially was like, no, we can't let NBA teams cross over the border all the time. So they had to go into the States. That hurt them a lot in terms of both financially and also both like a team sort of as an organization, just lost a lot of momentum. But since then, I mean, like they tanked, they got Scotty, that was great. But the other pieces have been added to this. That's the thing. You don't really have those secondary pieces that have been added. They don't have that like marquee signing like you guys got with Jalen Brunson that really like it rejuvenates the squad. They don't even have those like little small trades that really add to the squad and really build it, like adding a Josh Hart, for example. So I think that's where Raptor fans are kind of just watching like these guys that they're known. They've watched them win together. Guys start walking out the door. Kyle Lowry walks out the door. Serge Ibaka walks out the door. Marc Gasol walks out the door. Fred walks out the door. And it's like, all right, at a certain point, especially now with other guys going to free agency, what decision are you going to make? If you rebuild, I think Raptor fans will understand. You realign everything on Scotty's timeline and you try to push from there, and you probably push 5-6 years down the line. But right now they're kind of doing neither. And this is about as competitive as they will be, which is like roughly in the same range, maybe like 500, maybe slightly better than 500. Like 50 wins is probably the cap. But yeah, I mean, you don't really have a championship ceiling with this group. So I guess everyone's just kind of waiting to see what he decides to do.
And this is kind of where my stance has been. And like up until that point, like all the trades, all the wheeling and dealing he did, and the rebuilding of Toronto, excellent job, right? You get the championship. You made that trade for Kawhi Leonard. You traded DeRozan, Jakob Poeltl. You got Kawhi in return. You win the chip that year. And now afterwards, as you know, guys are just leaving. Serge, Marc Gasol. You let Fred VanVleet walk. You're essentially sold Lowry pennies on the dollar. And now you're just, you got Scotty, which is great, but now you're in this position yet again where you could potentially have 3 guys walk, right? You have to convince some of these guys that they got to stay. And that's where I'm just kind of like, what's the direction of this team for a guy who's like been so adamant, like you got to go for the chip if you're not doing it, which is might as well what he should say is like, I'm going to tank and get as much talent as I can through the draft. But then you look at the draft and you got Malachi Flynn, who I'm like, I need to know, like, because when we last talked, he wasn't doing too hot. He was like in and out of rotations, lineups, like wasn't very consistent. And so when I'm looking at the draft of what he's done there, and when I'm looking at the depth chart and you talk about the second unit being a little lackluster, I'm like, has Masai done a great job right now where he needs to get this moniker where he's like, he's one of the greatest GMs, one of the greatest president basketball operations, whatever his title may be out there. And I'm like, all right, you still, at some point we got to say, what have you done for me lately with this position? And it's like, is he still the king as he should be?
I mean, look, he had a great run, man. It's funny because like I never really think executives can ever be washed. Like a player could get washed because they get some injuries, they lose some kind of rhythm, whatever, right? But like Masai had an untouchable streak, bro. Like it was like, okay, we're gonna win 50 to 55 games a year with Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan as our star players. Like, no offense, but those guys were never even top 5 players in their own conferences. So the fact that they were like number 1 seed with those kind of guys, that spoke to the culture that they brought. Any guy he picked, whether it was a first round pick, second round pick, undrafted guys, they turn into gold. 27th pick, Pascal Siakam comes out of that. That's ridiculous. 27th pick, a guy that like I think 2 teams actually physically scouted him in New Mexico State, and you turn him into an all-star and a champion. You turn like an undrafted player in Fred VanVleet, and you build him up to the point where he was obviously great in 2019 in that playoff run. Huge shots. There were games where he hit like 7 threes against the Bucks to beat that team in the conference finals, and obviously had a great finals as well. You turn him into an all-star. That's an undrafted guy, like even guys like Jakob Poeltl, which I think was the pick that the Knicks conveyed to Toronto for the Bargnani trade, that got rolled up along with DeMar DeRozan into Kawhi Leonard, man. Like, and that was peak Kawhi. Like the Clippers are still dreaming about that Kawhi. I'm dreaming about that Kawhi. You turned into Michael Jordan that run. I'm not even kidding. I will stand on that 100%. But like he had an untouchable run. But I think when you set the standards that high, it's A, hard to follow, but B, you got to continue to be on that level, right? And I think that the trades that you've seen since then, it's like, all right, so we are going to trade Goran Dragic, who didn't even want to come to Toronto in the first place, but we trade his salary along with a first-round pick to get Thad Young. It's like, what? That's not exactly like we traded DeMar for Kawhi Leonard. And then the next trade deadline comes around, and it's like, okay, are the Raptors going to rebuild? You could trade some of these guys. Guys are going to maybe walk in for agency, and they ultimately did in Fred. And he's like, yeah, watch this. Here's a first-round pick and Kem Birch for Jakob Poeltl, which, look, listen, Jakob Poeltl is a really good player. He's been great. He's literally leading the league in field goal percentage. But that really cramps the spacing for a team that's already kind of short on it with Pascal and Scotty. So how does that fit long-term? In addition to the fact that I think the Raptors are like 5 games under 500 at the trade deadline. So that got the Raptors into the play-in, but like, that's not the goal, man. We're not trying to go to the play-in. So yeah, I think when you set the standards that high, like you just got to keep delivering, again, to continue this New York references, like Masai might be in his like Blueprint 3 era, yeah.
The Blueprint 3 era.
He still got some hits, but it's not exactly Blueprint 1 and 2.
I like Blueprint 3, man. So don't hate on Jay-Z.
Oh, okay, got you. All right,
don't hate,
all right.
don't hate.
Got you. We got a Young Forever fan in here.
Hey, You're relaxed over there, all right? You're relaxed. Now I got to go talk to all the Knicks Nation to make sure they give a beating to Toronto tomorrow.
All right.
All right. Let's keep the show moving along. What are your thoughts about your new coach, man? You got Darko Rajakovic. What are your thoughts been about him so far this season?
So when he first got here, he was saying all the right things, and to the point where I even like, you know, in the brief moments where I got to talk to Masai and Bobby, the front office, I asked both of them to their face. I'm like, "Did you guys get Darko because he's a yes man?" Because he was giving me yes man vibes. But I think since then, obviously they told me no. But I mean, what are they supposed to tell me? Yeah, we hired a yes man. But like, I think since then, what he's really come in and done is like, look, he has a clear offensive philosophy. He wants the Raptors to really be able to move the ball, share the ball. I think they're on like a 12, 13 game streak of 25 plus assists. And for a team that doesn't hit threes like at a very good level, like that's actually not bad. They're up there, I think, either 1 and 2 in terms of assists per game, in terms of passes per game. Like it's a clear system that Darko really wanted to come in with. And I think that the players have been able to buy into that. That's the biggest thing from a coach. If you get your players to buy in, you've already done half the battle. Now, of course, you got to pick the right tactics from that point, but a lot of coaches don't even get past the buy-in portion, especially when you're new. It's one thing when Tibbs comes to your team and he's like, "Yo, I've won different places. I've been an assistant as in a championship team with the Celtics. Like, you know, I did what I did with Chicago. When I come here, you guys are gonna do what I say, and it's gonna work out because I have that track record." Darko's new to the whole thing, right? Like he's been an assistant coach at different places at OKC, Phoenix, Memphis, but like it's new when you're like actually the head of it. So I think on that front, he's got the guys to buy in, which is great. Results wise, I think the roster comes up with a couple of issues. Like the starting lineup, like really the shooting threats in a starting lineup is just OG and Anunoby. Like, and OG is like mostly a corner catch and shoot 3-point guy. He's not moving all that much into his threes. And he's definitely not pulling up for three and generating his own threes, right? So not a lot of shooting. And then your second unit is also kind of inconsistent. So Darko is trying to both develop and give opportunities to some younger guys, but also make them play a new way. So in all that context, I think he's actually been pretty solid. Plus, it seems like all the guys still really rock with him. I mean, it's only been like 2 months, so it's like if they didn't like him, that'd be a real problem. But I think the guys really do genuinely connect with him, so that's been really strong. Oh, and also Dennis Schroeder is a decent shooter as well. Again, I can't really just diss my guy like that all the time, but he's like above league average for sure. Above league average for sure.
No, he's doing okay, man. He's
actually shooting the ball really well right now, which has been helpful because again, I think on the scouting report coming into the season, number one thing for Dennis would not be that he's a good 3-point shooter. It would be like he's going to drive downhill and be quick.
Look, man, for sure, it comes in waves. It comes and goes. That's who he is as a player.
Yeah.
He did that in LA. He did that wherever he's been, out in Atlanta. The list goes on. OKC, that was probably his best when he was with Chris Paul and LeBron. Those are his 2 best years. Still made the wrong decision on not taking that contract with the Lakers. But hey, you can only do what you can do.
He would tell you, man. He would tell you that was erroneously reported. Trust me. We've had conversations.
Erroneously reported.
Yeah, that's what that's his stance on this. So I'm here to relay that message.
Okay. Erroneously reported. I don't know. What does that even mean? Like he was not offered that contract?
He said cap. He said no, I was not offered that contract, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a sensitive subject though. Don't worry, man. We gotta
All right. Salute to Knicks Nation once again. You're tuning into the Game of the Week preview. We are previewing the New York Knicks facing the Toronto Raptors tomorrow. They'll be in Toronto facing the Raptors at 7:30 p.m. You can catch the game. With me is joining Will Liu to break down the team. He covers the Raptors for Sportsnet up in Toronto. But guys, let me talk to you about our sponsor today, Underdog Fantasy, okay? And you got to support them. And here's why. It's one of the best sports fantasy apps to use. Easy, fun, okay? It makes the game that much more intriguing. When I go on to Underdog Fantasy, I'm always looking to play when the Knicks are playing. And look, they just got easy categories and make it that much more engaging, all right? Outside of just field goal attempts and stuff like that, they give you different things, steals. They make it spicy. Do you think they're going to get a steal tonight, a block tonight, to even ante up how much money you could potentially win? And so when I go through, I'm choosing the 5 players I want. I'm going to choose my 3 Knicks, whoever be, and usually the same teams in the, for tomorrow, since we're playing the Raptors, probably choose Siakam and Scotty Barnes and take, maybe they're probably going to get, Who knows? I might go with like over 20, whatever points is for Pascal Siakam. I may keep it frisky and go say, hey, maybe Scotty will get over 5 rebounds tomorrow and just change it up a little bit. And you just choose higher and lower, whatever stat categories they give you. All right. And you can either make the option to go insured or not insured. If you choose not insured, you better get all 5 right. But if you do go insured, you can get 4. All you got to do is get 4 out of the 5 right, and you still get some money. So, guys, make sure to download that app. It's a lot of fun. Go download Underdog Fantasy and use that promo code KFTV to get up to a $100 match. You know it's the best thing to do right now. So join the game, join in on the fun tomorrow. CK and I will be making our picks. You can join us for the pregame preview, and we'll show you what we choose. All right, let's get back to this. Will, for tomorrow's game, we're going to break down this game now and discuss these matchups because it's different than the last time we played. Like I said, you were running. It's just funny to hear 6'9" vision. Everyone's making fun of me. They're like, Alex likes to use the term 6'9" vision. I'm like, yeah, I've never heard that term in my life. That's a pretty interesting concept. Didn't really work out for you guys.
Not catchy, man.
Not catchy at all. Didn't work out for you guys. And besides, like, you know what? This thing's terrible. Let me flip that around because all you had was Fred VanVleet. And I had to watch Pascal Siakam try to guard Mitchell Robinson. And I'd love to see that matchup now because that wouldn't last very long against Mitch and how he's playing right now. So, hey, let's talk about these matchups. Key matchup for me tomorrow is Julius Randle against Pascal Siakam. Both of these guys are averaging 19.9 points per game. They're rebounding pretty well. You're saying Siakam's going through a little bit of a cold streak. Well, Randle is getting back in form, if not in form right now, and he's changed his game yet again. First time, he was getting downhill and just shooting the mid-range, barely shooting threes when he made the All-Star team his first year. Last year, he was shooting way too many threes, had some of the most attempts and most makes, but the percentage was not there at 34%. So he was doing it, though, but he still was an All-Star last year and All-NBA as well. This year, he's decided to say what I've been asking him to do, which is just be a wrecking ball, drive down the lane, attack the paint, finish around the rim. He's been doing that really well, and he's been reading the double teams better too, passing it out, making the right reads. And so Randall's just playing like an all-star yet again. He's been pretty strong to start the season. After the first 6 games, it just took him a little bit after the ankle injury and the surgery he had this offseason to get back in rhythm. He's doing well. What do you think about that matchup going against Siakam, who, look, as you mentioned, all-star in his own right. Dude's talented. Even though he's struggling right now, I believe that he's going to figure out and get back to where he was in the previous seasons. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
It's a great matchup because these two guys go head-to-head every year for the same spot in All-Star and the same spot in All-NBA. Like, they literally just trade off that All-NBA spot. No, I mean, listen, for Siakam, it's the three-point shooting has never been his strength. Sometimes he's league average, sometimes he's not. Good thing with Siakam is he doesn't rely on the three. What he does is he lives in the post. He's really good with his back to the basket, but also really quick facing up towards the basket. You guys have really solid rim protection, obviously. I mean, you guys are great defensively this year in general, but, you know, Mitchell Robinson, obviously, you know, lurking as that weak side shot blocker. You can help off of Jakob Poeltl, mostly because obviously he doesn't shoot outside of layups. But yeah, that's where Pascal thrives. And I think the good thing with Pascal is similar to Randall in that way, where he's able to really put pressure on the paint and then he's able to distribute. And he's done a really good job, whether that's kicking it out to the corner, kicking out to the top for threes, or even that little shovel pass to Jakob. He's done a good job with that. So, I mean, whoever wins that matchup probably is going to win the matchup or win the game overall for their team. You know, I think that you'll probably see a lot of Scotty or OG guarding Brunson, and that's going to give Brunson some issues just because those guys are really great defenders. No disrespect to Jalen, but you know, that power forward matchup, as you're mentioning, is going to be huge, and I'm probably going to see a lot of them guarding each other. Quite honestly, we've seen OG guard, you know, Randall in the past, so it depends. But it was a different coach, you know, so who knows? Darko might choose to play it differently, but yeah, ultimately, those two are kind of relatively in the same tier. Like, I'm a little more biased. I'm going to say Pascal's in a better tier than Julius, but you might tell me differently. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Julius Randle threes, though. I know they're like a roller coaster, but I remember last year he came to Toronto in the first quarter, he hit like 6 threes. So I don't know. So part of me, I'm like, it looks like bad shots to me, but sometimes he actually does make them. But I was a little relieved to see that he's shooting in the 20s for 3.
Now, I can be critical of Julius, but I'm going to give Julius the edge in this matchup just because of his physicality. Like Siakam,
I got you.
More of a slippery fish, I would say, because he's he's more of a
Okay.
finesse guy. But I look, the
Yeah.
Knicks
All
have
right.
a rugged way of playing. I'm going to give the edge to Julius in this one, just for strength and how he can just bully people. And look, last year, when I had to go back and I was like, I had to think about like who's guarding Julius because of how the team was constructed for the Raptors last year, and it was a mix. It was a mix between OG and Scotty Barnes. I don't see Scotty guarding Randall this year, just because you don't need to have Siakam on Mitch this year. Because you got Jakob Pertl. So I think Siakam's going to stay on Randall this year. I think, as you pointed out, it's going to be Scotty, maybe OG on Brunson, which wouldn't be shocking. Just because, as you know, you want to like try to limit how much Brunson could do, since he is that number one guy for this team. I mean, look, even last year when he played Toronto, he still got over 20 points per game every time he played the Raptors. So the thing is, like, will he be efficient? Which the second and third game, he wasn't as efficient as game one against the Raptors. So, or I should say game two. I'm looking at this and it's like, it's like 2022 to 2023. And I'm like, look at this. I'm like, what's going on here? But yes, so like I think Jalen's still gonna get his tomorrow. I just don't see Scotty. I don't really see OG really stopping what Brunson could do. I mean, this is the guy who dropped 40 against the Miami Heat in the playoffs. So if you could try to contain him, maybe, but I don't see. And that's probably the next matchup is like Brunson versus who, and those are the next two guys that you said. I don't see anyone really stopping Brunson. I think if Brunson really wants to get activated, he's going to get activated. Like Scotty, for the wingspan he offers, yeah, can it slow down Brunson? Is Brunson going to have a 40-point game? No. But I don't think it's going to be as in game one where Brunson only scored 7 either, because after that, he figured it out. He knows the team, and now he's good to go. So I expect it to be like a 20-point some odd outing for Brunson, get to his spots, but I'm looking for him to do more facilitating and get other guys in rhythm.
Well, look, listen, I think the key to the game for you guys is if you guys can really guard the paint. I mean, you guys have a really good shot against the Raptors. That's the key. The Raptors outside shooting is just not going to worry you that much, but the Raptors do put a lot of pressure on the basket. But the thing is, when the Raptors have gone up against teams, even like Brooklyn did a really good job guarding the basket. Obviously, Nick Claxton was able to be available. He's obviously a good shot blocker, but that's typically been the strategy against Toronto. If I had to give the secrets away, like how Azultan was doing that for the Knicks, but yeah, I mean, look, I actually think that the Raptors do have some pretty good perimeter options, though. I think, look, OG's probably going to take the Randall matchup. If I had to guess, the more I'm thinking about it, just because Randall has that strength element to his game, and OG, for as good as he is on the perimeter, he's got light feet to guard. He's also strong as an ox, man. I think he's like actually on Randall's level for strength. So, he actually will probably take that matchup just to neutralize his strength. That probably leaves Scotty to guard Brunson. And we'll see. I think, honestly, when Scotty really flips it on and he turns on that switch, I don't know, man. He did a great job yesterday, even guarding KD. So, yeah. And the Raptors also have Dennis, too, man. Dennis is actually a pretty good on-ball defender. And he might press Brunson full court, might slow down your offense. You guys are kind of running a slow offense anyway, I feel like most times. It's going to be pick and roll or isolation with you guys. You guys have pretty good clarity in terms of what you guys want to do offensively. But, yeah, look, this is a good matchup. And I think, the Raptors won 3 of them last year. Right. Yeah. So, and one of them, Pascal had like 52 or something, or 51, or like he dropped the 50 ball in the Garden. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, it's always a fun matchup. One of the games went to overtime. I think the Raps won that one as well. But
yeah, off the RJ Slam. Can't forget the RJ Slam on Scotty Barnes, your boy, by the
way. That's right. I think that in that game, Scotty also told Quentin Grimes, "You was not him." It led to a little bit of war of words. I like when this matchup is spicy, but I do think both teams are well equipped to guard each other. So that's what's going to make it a good matchup, and a pretty close game too.
Yeah, that's the thing. So like, obviously, it's going to be Brunson on Schroeder, because the other matchups, like OG is your shooting guard, Scotty's your 3, Siakam's your 4, and so I think for the Knicks, I wouldn't be surprised if Grimes is on Scotty, and I like defensively.
That's a size mismatch, though.
Look, I totally hear that, but we don't have anyone else that's a true like matchup for Scotty. He's 6'9". The next outside of Randall, who I wouldn't necessarily want Randall guarding Scotty, just because the agility of Scotty on the perimeter is not Randall's strong suit defensively. That would leave either RJ who may also get some of that assignment as well. But I think it's going to be given to Grimes first to see can Grimes handle it first, and then would move to RJ. And that's how I think that starting unit is going to match up defensively. And then, the wild card for me is RJ does RJ get back into his offensive rhythm, because he had a strong start to the season, like I said, before he got sick. That's where it is to me. But moving this thing along, man, the next thing is the bench. For the bench, Knicks got a strong bench.
Yeah,
we got you
guys win the bench, no problem. It's easy, bro. It's easy. Trust me, man. Raps bench is inconsistent, man. Like, let's hear the whole storyline is how much love can we show Malachi Flynn? How much love and support can we show him? So Darko's talking about, he's like, I want to put a smile on his face. I want to, and his coach, his teammates, the vets on the team, Dennis, guys like Garrett Temple, guys who are like 10-year vets, are like, putting their arm around his shoulder and bringing him into their card games and like really just getting him as much confidence as possible. And then you look at overall and it's like, yeah, he is playing better. There's no doubt. I actually love this storyline. It's really acute to me, but I mean, Quickly is leagues ahead, I would say. And Malachi is tough. He will try to guard, but I think Quickly probably gets off a little bit, and that's gonna be tricky because you never know what you're gonna get from Precious. Real grab bag from Precious these days, man. It could be like it could be some pretty bad play, or it could actually be pretty solid. But it's a range. Boucher is a bit of a wild card too. Like, there's no guarantee off the Raps bench like you guys have guarantees of your bench.
Yeah, the guarantee for us is, like, as you mentioned, Emmanuel Quickly, runner-up when it came to Sixth Man of the Year last year. Then you also got Josh Hart. You got Dante DiVincenzo. We got Isaiah Hartenstein. And then RJ runs with that second unit. And that's where it's the Quickly RJ show, where both of those guys start to pour in their points. I'm looking for Quickly just to take it away with the second unit. That's kind of what he does. And then he gets his time with the first unit to space out the floor. So that's where this matchup is really going to be interesting. It's going to get down to the late game for me, man, where, usually at the end of games, Quickly has now been earning even more of that right to be a closer. But then if you're going to have Brunson and Quickly out there, that's a very small backcourt. And the Toronto Raptors are not small. Unless Gary Trent Jr. is out there in the closing minutes, which,
I mean, Raps do close small sometimes too. Raptors sometimes will take Jakob off the floor because he's also a liability shooting free throws. So they'll take Jakob off the floor and they'll go with Gary. Even if Gary's not having a great game, they'll probably usually close with Gary. Depending on the other team goes small. If you guys finish big, obviously they're fine with Robinson versus
That's Hacky Jakob. Is that what has been happening to you guys?
Hasn't happened yet, I don't think, to be honest. But I mean, it's the guy shoots one-handed free throws, guys. Like, it's conceivable that you guys can want to do it. Yeah.
Wait, he shoots a one-handed free throw?
You'll see tomorrow.
Oh my goodness gracious! You get this guy back, and he hasn't learned how to shoot a proper. Was this like the opposite of Hey Arnold, where you're doing underhand, you're just doing one shots? What is this? Was it Mason Plumlee doing this too?
When the Raptors had Jakob, he shot two-handed free throws, and when he went to the Spurs, Pop was like, "Yo, maybe you try one hand." So he came back to us with one less hand on the free throw. So if we trade him back to the Spurs, it's gonna be a zero-handed free throw. He's gonna try to headbutt the ball in or something.
Good God, this is. I see you in the chat, JJ. Shout out to everyone who's tuning in right now. Shout out to Knicks Nation. Shout out to all the franchise channel members. We got JJ in here. We got Jamaica Queens in here. Who else we got in here? We got Gregory Weiner in here. Shout out to all you guys tuning in. And I see who is it? JJ, you said Mitch should try that? Absolutely not, man. Mitch is already struggling from the free throw line. Shooting like 40%, man. Maybe even less than that. We don't need none of that.
Oh, okay.
Shout out to the Shells.
Oh, we got to hack him then. Because the Raptors did actually hack Claxton when the Raptors were down against the Nets. So Darko might try to do that same thing with if they want to get your rim protection off the floor.
Well, who is it? The Suns tried that, and the Heat did hack and Mitch. And it was a trend that they did, that the Cavs did in the playoffs last year, and then Mitch just hit his free throws magically. And it was like everyone was just in the crowd standing like, yo, it's not gonna work this time. Amazing. I gotta ask you about one more player. And then we're going to wrap this show up, Will. And it's Grady. How has Grady been for the Raptors so far?
Every time I see Grady, I'm like, he's so much like a kid to me. Like, there's some rookies that, regardless of what age they come in the league, like sometimes they're a little bit more mature. Like when Scotty came in the league, I'm like, oh, he's not a kid. Mostly because he was already like 250 and like strong as hell. I'm like, yeah, this kid is probably the biggest guy on the team. I'm not going to see him as a kid. Grady, hasn't really found the ability to shoot the three, which I think is like obviously the biggest thing that he was drafted for. Still obviously so early. No one's going to make any sweeping judgments, but he had been really struggling. Even watching him in warm-up settings, that he wasn't really consistent with the three ball. So like a lot of the first round picks of this year, he's gotten a G League stint. He's gone down there. Last time he went down to G League, he was 1 for 12 in the first game, which is obviously not ideal. And then he went like 5 of 20. So he's like really down there to like shoot as many shots and just try to find the shot again. Because that is his NBA comp long term will be like Kyle Korver, let's say. If Kyle Korver was shooting 1 of 12 from the field, he wouldn't be in the league, right? So he's got to figure it out as a really young player. But he's 20 years old. He was like one of the best shooters in the country last year in college basketball. He's been like a long, highly touted recruit for a long time, even coming up in high school and stuff. So I have no doubt that this guy did not just forget how to shoot. Like, he's going to be able to shoot. And when he finds the shot again, he'll be ready to play. But in the meantime, he's not going to factor in
okay,
too much.
Just had to ask, man, because I know he was a big name in this upcoming draft and the Raptors were able to get him. All right. Yeah. Okay, well, what are your predictions for tomorrow before I let you out of here?
I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think either team is going to be touching like 120 or anything like that. It's going to be a more classic, like maybe 105, 104 kind of matchup. I think it'll be close, but I think because it's in Toronto, I think the Raptors take it. It really comes down to how well you guys guard the paint, though. If you guys can keep Mitch on the floor, and if you can really lock in defensively on that front, Raptors will have a hard time really getting going. But I think just because the Raptors have played pretty well at home, and also off the good vibes of beating KD and Book, I'm going to pick the Raps. What about you?
Okay. I'm going to go with my Knicks, man. I know they're playing tonight against the Detroit Pistons, but
that's going to be easy. Don't worry.
Yeah, look,
if y'all lose to the Pistons,
hold on. It's not the fact of losing to the Pistons. It's the fact that we make this a little bit more of a game than we actually needed to make it, because there are times where Knicks will just come out flat in the third quarter and you're just having a heart attack watching this team. And I'm like, why are we doing this to ourselves? But, I will give them credit in the past with the Hornets. They did put them away, and then we were able to watch the Stars get some rest when they had to go play the Celtics the next day. Unfortunately, RJ wasn't able to play in that game, so then I had to go watch the Knicks revert back to some really bad habits, which is too much isolation and not enough ball movement. But in this case, I think the Knicks are going to come away with the victory. I think the thing is, and you talked about the paint presence, Mitchell Robinson's like I really can't emphasize how much he's really improved this offseason as a defensive presence for the Knicks. Like last year, of course, like we always know he's a good in the pick and roll. He's a rim protector and whatnot, but he's really standing his own ground at this point. Like when it comes to opposing bigs, like there's only been a handful of games where he's just been outclassed. And that's not necessarily because of him. That's because of like his teammates not being able to either guard the perimeter or not catching up on their rotations. Like very, very rarely is it Mitch just coming out flat and not trying to do his job. And so with Jakob Poeltl, who isn't really in the class of like the guy like Kristaps Porzingis, who's just on a tear this season, who can stretch the floor and get Mitch out of the paint, which mutes Mitch's impact. If the Raptors are all about scoring in the paint, this is going to be a tough game for them because Mitch has just been that dominant this season. So I'm going with Mitch showing up in this game. He's been a monster on the boards, getting second chance opportunities. He's leading the league in offensive rebounds, man. So if you guys can't stop the Knicks on the offensive end where it comes to getting just second chance opportunities, it's going to limit the possessions that the Raptors will get. So I'm going with the Knicks. It's going to be a close one though. Look, I think this might be an ugly game. I think
they match up well defensively.
Prominent. Yeah. Okay. Raptors I know the Raptors are like what, top 15. I think they're like 12th right now. Last time I checked when it came to defensive rating, Knicks are the top 5, but I think it's going to be a slugfest.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised. And it all depends on how both teams are shooting. If these teams aren't hitting the shots,
this
is going to be a 90 point some odd game between both these teams.
I like that though. I like that. I'm tired of seeing these 150 games. That's not basketball to me, man. Play some defense.
Yeah, it's become a layup line and everyone shoots threes and nothing else in between. It's very rare. Yeah, although the Knicks like to shoot their mid-range shots. This is a very heavy mid-range. So we'll see. Yeah. But Will, appreciate you coming on, man, and previewing this game. Please let our listeners know where they can find you if you got anything up and coming that we should be on the lookout for.
Yeah. If you are interested in Toronto Raptors, you got to listen to the Raptors show. We're getting all this love. Spotify at the end of the year, they tell you that like your top listener podcast, that's my mentions right now. It's just like all these Spotify screen grabs of like, we listened to you a lot this year. It feels great. It's like a report card. You come home with straight A's. But seriously, it's been excellent. We're on every single day, 2 to 4 p.m. We got lots of great guests. We had Adam Silver on our show.
Oh, wow.
I know. Yeah, I know. So Adam Silver on our show 2 weeks ago. We got Dennis Schroeder on the show every single week. We talked to all the players. And yeah, it's a great time. So again, that's the Raptors show. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts.
Awesome, man. I see your stuff. I catch you guys on YouTube, man. When I tap in,
appreciate it.
But you get like your guests. You're just naming guests.
Yo, our producers
are
going
really
nuts
stepping up the guest level now.
No, that's all the producers, man. That's all the producers. They do a great job.
Well, Will, thank you again for coming on the show. And to Knicks Nation, thank you all for tuning in for another Game of the Week preview. Make sure to tap in tomorrow. We're gonna have a play-by-play with CK2K calling the game, and then you can always tune in for post-game afterwards. So make sure to tap in tomorrow, but make sure before you leave, hit that thumbs up button for your boys, okay? Hit that thumbs up button for your boys. We just had a great show with Will on, all right? We just broke down this game for you guys. So make sure to tap in, share the links to everybody that you know, friends, family members, cats and dogs, whoever it may be. And make sure, if you can't catch us on here on YouTube, live and whatnot, you can always find us on any audio listening platform, Apple, Spotify, whatever it may be that you use. You can catch us all there. Support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to up to a $100 match. Also, check out KnicksFanTV.com. We got great writers contributing over there. All right, Knicks Nation, appreciate you for all tuning in. Salute to all the mods. Salute to all our franchise channel members. Salute to Knicks Nation. We'll catch you tomorrow. We out.